Yo, it's Corey from Floodway once again. As you can see, I got a rack of screens here ready to coat, so I am super excited to show you the whole process from end to end, including checking screen tension, which is super important. So let's get to it. Alright, so in case you can't tell by the lighting, we are in the dark room now, and I brought a couple things with me. First is a wet rag, just to keep the edges of things clean. That's going to really help us wiping stuff up. And I also brought the scoop coater. Obviously, you can see we keep ours in a PVC pipe. That helps keep the edge safe from imperfections. You don't want any nicks or scratches or anything like that in the scoop coater. And the next thing is that spatula for cleanup. And the emulsion is already in here. So let me show you this table situation and we'll get started here. Alright, so I've got this set up here now, and something I wanted to do with this video was coat a couple screens just as normal, you know, and explain it as I go, just like I would if I was training somebody brand new to the process. So let's get started. First screen. So one of the first things we're doing is checking the tension, and that's very important because, well, tight screens are really good, but what we need for setup is consistent screens. So that's something huge that we've built into this table that I really wanted to talk about here. So measuring tension can be a bit of a chore, but I'm finding that if we could figure out a way to not have to, you know, have it be a totally separate part of the process, then things will go a lot better. At an old shop I used to work at, you would do reclaim, and then you would take each one of these screens, check the tension, put it back in the rack, and then, you know, later it would get coated. And when I look at that process, what I see is a lot of extra motion waste and a lot of extra just moving stuff around. So every time you take the screen out, you have to put it back in. And that's not really ideal. I don't know, no one pays us to do that, right? So what we came up with here was these little stilts for the table. And what that allows us to do is put the screens down without having to move anything. You see I've got my rag, I've got my spatula, I've got everything right here. So you can see I'm putting it down, I'm measuring the tension, and I'm writing it with a Sharpie on here. Now that doesn't mean too much to our press operators because they're not really choosing based on tension. What we do though, and the important part of measuring tension is just deciding on when you're gonna change your behavior, you know what I mean? So these screens come in, they're at about 20 newtons, so 20 newtons and above, that's money for us. That's just a normal old screen in production. But as soon as they start dropping to 17 newtons or less, we put a sticker on them. We keep some stickers right here. So we'll put it's like a caution sticker. So by putting that caution sticker on there, it lets the screen shooter know that he's dealing with, you know, a screen that is of lower tension. Now, it doesn't mean we're going to toss it out, but it might mean that we're not going to use it for that multicolored job, or we're just going to use it for a single spot color or something like that. And then once they fall below 15 or less, they get low tension, like a big red sticker, which is a huge warning. It basically says like, hey, simple spot color work only, you know, like black ink, easy stuff only, because this screen is on its way out. It just lets this person exposing the screens make better decisions, and it affects the people on press. So if I have a 5-color job, I'm going to try and just pick a bunch of screens that are good. I'm going to avoid those warning stickers, those caution stickers. Something we missed during prep was filling the scoop coater. Now I know this isn't a huge, you know, it's not a very hard thing to do. You're just pouring the emulsion in. But something important to remember is I read this Kiwo article that said that there's a difference in the amount of force being put on the screen from the emulsion based on how much emulsion is in the trough. So this Kibo article said something like when the trough was really low, they were getting like 6% EOM, and when the trough was full, they were getting like 12% EOM. And when we were aiming for like around 10% EOM, that's a huge difference, a huge variable that's going to cause a mess down the line in exposure. How are you supposed to dial in your exposure times if one screen has, you know, twice as much emulsion in it as the other one, right? So it's very important to keep a consistent level of the fill here, not let it get too low, not crank it and fill it up too high, but just to, you know, keep it in that kind of, keep it in that happy medium for consistency's sake. All right, so we've talked about checking tension, and we've talked about preparation, you know, filling up the scoop coater and everything. So next let's talk about pressure and speed. So something really important here is consistent pressure and consistent speed across all the screens. The rate of speed and the angle and the pressure all are variables that dictate how much emulsion is going into this screen, which will give you your ultimate emulsion over mesh ratio. You know, I'm not going to say much about those variables except for that you want it tilted, you know, as close as the mesh as it can be. You want to put some good pressure on it so it sings, you can hear it. And you want to keep that angle the same the whole way up. Now, when we're talking about speed, that's a little bit of a trickier one because I'm not a robot, but I'm aiming for like, you know, about 7 seconds when we're going up. And you just want them to be the same. You just want to make sure, you know, when you're in a rush, that you're not rushing the scoop coating, because it's not going to help you. It's just going to cause you some problems on press. Something else I want to talk about is loading the screen rack. You always want to load your screen racks from the top to the bottom. That way, if you're jiggling any dust or unsettling any crap, it's not drizzling down onto wet screens, it's drizzling down onto nothing because you're going from the top to the bottom. The big thing to pay attention to here is you only want to get started with your scooping once the emulsion has fully formed its seal against the mesh. And you can see that happening. I'll try and get a close-up of the beading here, but you're just looking for that bead of emulsion to just fully get onto that mesh, and that's when you're ready to start your coating. So one more skill here. So when you get to the top of your coating, you don't want to just pull this scoop coater straight back and leave a big glob of ink, right? So you're going to want to give it a little, you want to tilt it back, give it a little side to side to cut it, and that should let you just scoop it up off the edge there, and it should give you a nice clean edge, because those thick beads of emulsion, well, they're kind of a waste of money, but they're hard to reclaim, which is also a bit of a waste of time, which is even worse than a waste of money. So we want to consider that for sure. Time for another emulsion refill. Remember, we want to keep it at that mid-level, not too low, not too high. It's much better to fill it a couple times than to have a bunch of screens that are inconsistent, right? And when we do this scoop coater refill, this is usually when I like to take my rag. Good opportunity to give your edge a little wipe there, because if anything sticky, anything dusty or cruddy on there, it might leave a streak, it might leave a scratch, you know, you could even pop a screen. So you want to keep that edge nice and clean for a nice smooth coat of emulsion. Now this might seem like a no-brainer, but you gotta rack the screens with the print side down, not the other way around. That's because we want the gravity to bring this emulsion down and let the gravity make that perfectly smooth surface as it all hangs down the other side of the mesh here. Alright. Alright, so that's it. That's the last of the screens. Last step in the darkroom here is just cleaning out this scoop coater. That's why we brought the spatula in, remember? I'm going to do it opposite handed so y'all can see, because it looks kind of cool. And there it is. And we just try and scoop as much of that out as you can without making a mess. Alright? Now, you can put your tools in the scoop coater, put your rag in the scoop coater. You've got your lid. You can seal that emulsion back up. And then we're ready to go to the sink, which I can show you right now. Just gonna use the rag and kind of get it all clean. Make sure I don't bang the edges of the scoop coater on anything. And once that's done, we're done. So thank you all for tuning in. I appreciate you sticking around so far, and I hope that helps somebody, you know. It's just a couple bits of pieces of advice and tips to help get some consistent screens, because great prints starts with great screens. It's really all you need to pull them off. So let me know what you think. Comments below. Obviously you need to like and subscribe. I want to know what you want to see, because I want to make some more videos. So thanks again for watching. Appreciate you tuning in.